what we are starting with today, though, is two Supreme Court judges questioned Asiedu Nketia over the NDC's own figures. And that was revealing in the court yesterday when they asked Johnson Asiedu Nketia about their own figures. And this has been going on even before the case was called. Social media and political conversations on radio and television had been discussing, does the petitioner, President Mahama, have his own figures? Because if you're going to court and you say that the election was not valid, or that the winner of the election was not validly elected according to Article 64 of the Constitution, then you must be telling us in the alternative what happened. Somehow the NDC said they were going to show a lot of that when the court case begins. I interviewed some of them here, and they said they were going to show that when the court case begins. When President Mahama filed his witness, his statement, his petition statement, there was not much in there, but the lawyers told us that they will have a lot, and they will not be as dramatic as the 2013 petition when tons of pink sheets were carried into the court to file, that they will only file the case and then they will present the evidence during the witnessing. The biggest witness was Johnson Asiedu Nketia. The first one who was called, of course, today was Pesa White, but Johnson Asiedu Nketia spoke to the court. This was the most interesting part. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is Justice Yawa Powell, and his question to Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S is, now, in all these figures that were mentioned, and the valid votes cast, and all those things, you were saying if the figures were correct, unquote, you were saying, and I quote, if the figures were correct, unquote, and that there were inconsistencies in the figures. I want to ask you now, in your own calculation, what were the total valid votes cast in the presidential election on 7 December 2020 in your own calculation? Now, listen to Johnson Asiedu Nketia. You can read with me. It's on your screen. He says, my lord, those calculations are reserved for a meeting for us to reconcile the figures because the first respondent, the Electoral Commission herself, keeps changing the figures. Let's go through that again, if you don't mind. It says that, okay, I'll paraphrase it now. So in all the figures, the judge, His Lordship Justice Yawa Powell, is asking, in your own calculation, what were the valid votes cast? And Johnson Asiedu Nketia says that those calculations are reserved. Election was, what, December 7th? January 7th has come. This week will be February 7th. Today's 2nd, sorry. So, what, 5 days from now will be 7th, almost 2 months after the election. Asiedu Nketia says, my lord, the calculations are reserved for a meeting for us to reconcile the figures because the Electoral Commission herself keeps changing the figures. I mean, never mind that the Electoral Commission has gazetted some of these figures. This is what Johnson Asiedu Nketia told the court. We are doing this so that we will show you the contrast in 2013, and then you can make the decision for yourself. Then we can also educate our people and hope that in future with an election petition, there will be some guidelines that will make it hopefully better. Okay. Now, His Lordship, the Chief Justice, Justice Nketia'S, decides to participate in this engagement. And so he comes in and asks for permission. He starts by saying, excuse me, Mr. Asiedu Nketia, help the courts. Help the courts. You see, when you started giving evidence, you said you had representatives across the 275 constituencies. You said you put agents there and they were to collate the figures. You said it. Then he's asking you that from that, what figure did you get? That's the Lord Chief Justice, the president of the panel, and also the president of the courts. He's asking, he comes in, and you can see from the tone of his voice. Now, before this election petition, we gave you a background of each of the judges. And remember, we said, Yawa Powell is your Presbyterian kind of guy. And Justice Nketia'S is your guy who has a lot of fidelity to procedure. He's a system procedure. He likes procedure. And you can tell from the tone of his language that his lordship perhaps was not too happy with a few things. But let's hear him again. He says, excuse me, Mr. Asiedu Nketia, help the court. You see, when you started giving evidence, you said that you had representatives in all the 275 constituencies. You said you put agents there and they were to collate the figures. You said it. Then he's asking you that from that, what figure did you get? Asiedu Nketia'S then comes in and says, my lord, I haven't brought that figure to the court. Really? Forgive me. The figure, the whole basis on which President Mahama believes that he won the election, the whole basis on which the NDC believes that the results as declared are invalid, has to do with the fact that they think that something else ought to have been declared. Quite clearly, the NDC believes that something else ought to have been declared. And here, Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S is being asked, where are the figures? And he says, my lord, I haven't brought that figure to the court. Okay, never mind. Let's move on. Then Justice Yaopao seems to want to continue what he's doing. So he continues and says, then from your own calculations, what were the valid votes cast in favor of the petitioner, that is President Mahama, to your knowledge? He's asking Asiedu Nketia'S, as far as you are concerned, what were the valid votes that were cast in favor of President Mahama? Here Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S again. He says, my lord, when we discovered these discrepancies, it was difficult to even, let's see whether it continues there. No, okay. So that's how it sort of ends. We'll show you the video as well, so you know that we are not concocting these figures. We'll show you the video of what transpired in the court. We have it. We'll show you. And then we'll show you another very interesting video from 2013. Watch out for that. Go nowhere. Don't move. Okay, then from your own calculations, what were the valid votes cast in your favor, in favor of the petitioner? Asiedu Nketia'S says, my lord, when we discovered these discrepancies, it was difficult to even, I don't know what he meant, but when we show you the video, you will see it. When we show you the video, you'll see it. Okay. So you don't know. That's a question from Justice Yaopao. He says, so you don't know. You just answer. So you don't know. That's a question. He says, so you don't know. You just answer. You don't know. Asiedu Nketia'S says, I don't have them. So Justice Yaopao, I believe that's how it ends. No, there's a bit more. Okay. So he says, so you don't know. You just answer the question. You don't know. Asiedu Nketia'S says, I don't have them. He does not have those figures that their lordships are interested in for now. Okay. Then another one says, so Justice Yaopao continues. He says, okay. Then the last one, that's, he's saying, he's advertising his last question. He says, then the last one, what figures from your own calculations did the second respondent, being Nana Akufo-Addo, get as the total valid votes cast in his favor? That's his lordship asking that. What, as far as you are concerned, you're challenging the validity of the election and, of course, the declaration. Now, what in your own calculation did you get? Asiedu Nketia'S says, I don't have them. What in your own calculation is the total valid vote cast? He says, I don't have it. What in your own calculation did John Dramani Mahama get? He says, I don't know. I don't have them. And now they're asking him, what in your own calculation, therefore, did Nana Akufo-Addo get? Because you had agents in the 275 collating centers across the country. The presidential election, in the presidential election, the whole Ghana is considered as one constituency. So all of those constituencies are not real constituencies. They are like polling stations. And one constituency is the nation. So you bring all of it together. If you have agents everywhere, you should be able to make a calculation and find out what you got. Okay, he says, my lord, I don't have those figures. He doesn't have the figures that they believe that Nana Akufo-Addo got. He doesn't have it. Okay, I think that's the last one. And therefore, Justice Apao says, thank you. That's all. Now, this brings me to the conversation. This is what transpired in court. Let's show you the video just so that we do fidelity to veracity. Let's verify what we have just told you. So we're going to show you the video of Asiedu Nketia'S. We'll come back to the studio and then we will show you what we think is the most important video that everyone must see relating to this election petition because it comes from the old election petition. Let's see. Let's verify this. Asiedu Nketia'S video. Let's show it.
Now, in all the figures that were mentioned as the valid vote cast and all those things. You were saying if the figures were correct, and that there were inconsistencies in the figures, I want to ask you, now, in your own calculation, what were the total valid votes cast in the presidential elections on 7 December 2020? In your own calculations.
My Lord, those calculations are reserved for a meeting for us to reconcile the figures, because the first respondent herself keeps changing the figures. And so it says, when you bring your...
Excuse me, Mr. Nketia'S, help the court. You see, when you started giving evidence, you said you had all representatives across the 275 constituencies. You said you put agents to use the... Yes, and they were to, collect the figures. You said it. Then he's asking you that from that, what figure did you get? You.
My Lord, I haven't brought that figure to court.
Okay. Then, from your own calculations, what were the valid votes cast in favor of the petitioners, to your knowledge?
My Lord, when we discovered this discrepancy, it was difficult to even know which figures are.
You don't know, you just answer. You don't know.
I don't have them here.
Okay, then the last one. What figures from your own calculations did the second respondent get as the total valid votes cast in his favor?
My Lord, I don't have those figures here.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, so now you get the understanding. That's Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S. That's Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S. So the reason why we have played this, so that you've heard it now. The reason why we have played it is that we are not going to show you a video of my interview with Gloria Kufu in 2013, asking her questions about their case, about the case of the petitioner. What case are they taking to the court? I asked Gloria these questions, Gloria Kufu, the Honorable Gloria Kufu, these questions, former Attorney General. I asked her these questions, and she told me something about the case that they are taking to the court. Have a listen. Have a listen to that, and then we'll come back and run the commentary. Have a listen. Joy Online has reported you, Madam Gloria Kufu, saying that at the end of the process, you expect the court to deduct some number of votes from President Mahama, but also deduct some number of votes from Nana Akufo-Addo. That's amazing. Can you explain that?
Because it's like adding rotten stew to good fresh stew. Where it is found, for example, that voting took place where there was no verification, and a number is put there.
Of the number of people who voted? Who
voted there. Those have been reckoned. But when you take that, you are not able to tell for whom they voted for. And so since you cannot tell, then the entire result at a specific polling station ought not to have been added. And therefore, you will deduct from the total number of votes that have been credited to
each of the candidates.
You subtract from them.
Let's do the mathematics to see whether I get you. So you have a polling station, 200 people voted at the polling station, which is the standard. You're saying that it records maybe 75 people voted without biometric registration.
That's correct.
Now that then immediately takes them into the area of violations.
Yes.
Okay, so all the 200 people that voted, what happens? Because the sheet will also record J.D. Mahama would have gotten maybe 75, Nana Akufo-Addo maybe something, Bakwesi Ndum something. So what happens to those numbers allotted to the various candidates?
The effect is when you nullify the results. Remember that at the end of the polls, the whole country constitutes one constituency. So all these results have been put together to determine who won. If therefore these votes that have been contaminated by the non-verification, then the results of the polling station ought to be taken out.
So and you can only the 75 people who voted without biometric registration?
No.
You're cancelling all the 200?
You are cancelling the total valid vote cast there.
So you're taking 200 from J.D. Mahama? You
are taking whatever was allotted to J.D. Mahama, you allotted whatever was allotted to Nana Akufo-Addo.
Oh, the one that was allotted to them?
Yes.
Okay. So if Nana Akufo-Addo got 82, you take it out?
You take it out.
Because this is an
from
invalid...
From his total vote declared.
Okay, I see what you mean. So you have done the mathematics?
Very well.
So that's a lot of work, isn't it?
It's worth it.
And in the mathematics, you reckon that about 4 million, is that what
over 4 million votes are contaminated and ought to be across the country and ought to be nullified in over 11,000 polling stations. And when that is done, you'll realize that Nana Akufo-Addo is the winner and Joe Mahama is the loser.
So those allotted, in those 11,000 places, those allotted to President Mahama, take them out. Those allotted to Nana Akufo-Addo, take them out. Because
you will not be able to tell how the...
And of course, those allotted to Parkway Sindum goes out as well?
All of them. But since the first two
are the critical ones,
those are the two that we are matching.
And so when you do the mathematics, your client wins the election?
That's correct.
When we come from the break, I'll do the emails. I have quite a few coming in asking me to ask you whether your side is worried by the suit that Justice Pega apparently is complaining about Nana Akufo-Addo's qualification as a lawyer, whether you're worried by that. We have been told today that Mr. Frank Davis has entered appearance for your client. And then I'll do the emails after the break. We'll be right back. (2013). That was Gloria Ekufu. Later, she became the Attorney General, but at that time, she was the leader of the team. You heard it. She was driving through the Petitioner's case, and they said they have isolated 11,000 out of the over 25,000 or so polling stations for the 2012 election. They have isolated 11,000 polling stations in which they have identified infractions, and that when all of these calculations are done, and they did have the figures, and they took those figures to the court. It wasn't what we have today where the Honorable General Secretary says, I don't have them. They had them in that petition. They had them. And they took the figures to court. And they said to the court that if you nullify all of that, because we are alleging that in 11,000 polling stations, electoral infractions occurred. And therefore, some of the electoral infractions are voting without biometric verification, which was one of the rules for 2012's election. The CI that captured that election, I believe it was CI 75, said that all voting must be done by biometric verification. They had identified that in 11,000 polling stations, that does not happen. Therefore, they're inviting the court to take the votes out of those 11,000 polling stations from John Dramani Mahama, from Nana Akufo-Addo as well. They are saying that by mathematical outcomes, if you do that, some 4 million votes will be annulled. If you were to annul 4 million votes from both candidates, John Dramani Mahama will fall back and Nana Akufo-Addo will be the winner, according to Article 63. That was the election petition of 2013. That was the standard of the election petition of 2013. Your guess is as good as mine. However, I have to say that after the Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S interview by the court, former Attorney General Marietta Briopon spoke to the press, and she gave a justification for the Asiedu Nketia'S presentation. Let's listen to her. This is what she said.
There were also questions from the bench about our own figures, but I think we need to make it clear, and it's been made clear over and over again. We are here challenging the EC on its own figures. Its own figures. What are those figures? There's the 9th of December, there's the 10th of December so-called correction, and there's also the figure in their paragraph 24. And then today we realize that even in some of the constituencies, and they themselves brought out the example Techiman South, they are errors. So if you ask us, what are our own figures? How are we going to get our own figures based on all these flawed sheets and different figures? And so we stand by what we are saying, that based on her own declaration, nobody got more than 50%. So today we are happy with the cross-examination of the general. We are happy with the results, and we think that our case was made clearly in the court today. So if there are any questions.
Okay, so you saw the defense that the Honorable Marietta Brewer put on for Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S, but you have to evaluate it, and I'm sure that on social media people are already giving their opinions, and we're always excited about when opinions come in. And tomorrow we will isolate this part, put it on social media for you. You heard Marietta. Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S goes to the court, just so that I summarize. He says that I don't have the figures. We are saying that we saw the election petition of 2013. It looked like it was different. The petitioners had a lot more to say. We have showed that to you, and then you can make your own imagination and your own guesswork and your own assessment of what happened in 2013 and what's happening now. Whilst we do that, though, there's another Gloria Kufu video that we're going to show you. It was in the part of the same program. I asked her a question involving, guess who? Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S. Because Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S had said something during that election petition. So I put the question to Gloria Kufu, and she answered it. Let's have a very short 2 minutes. Let's have a look at that video. You reckon that when that is done, and then you expect the Supreme Court to do that. Johnson Asiedu Nketia'S has been given some constitutional interpretation. He says that the Supreme Court will be unable to pronounce a president of Ghana. And so the Supreme Court is not seized with the power to pronounce anybody as president. After the issues have been settled by the court, is your side asking the court to do that? And if you are, don't we know that there's an electoral commissioner that pronounces presidents and the Chief Justice swears them in? The Supreme Court doesn't say who won the election.
Yes, we are asking the Supreme Court to declare that Mr. John Mahama was declared president and that declaration is invalid. Then the next one is that rather it is Nana Akufo-Addo who won the elections and must be declared by the court as the winner of the 2012 elections. Emphasis on declare.
Must be declared by the court.
By the court.
Can the court do that?
The court can't do that because the Constitution says where you are dissatisfied with the results of an election and you desire to challenge the validity of an elected president, you could do so. And there is a law which sets out the procedure by which that can be done. Indeed, if you couldn't do so, the Constitution wouldn't say so. And the place to do this are in our courts. Of course, we didn't take cutlasses to fight, and it is because we appreciate, and our clients appreciate, that this is not about Nanado, this is not about the NPP, that this is indeed about Ghana. Because elsewhere, where they have not resorted to the court, we all know what has happened. Our own Kenya have learned their lessons. We don't want to go that way. And that is why we have done what. In any case, generally, the courts have got the power to order statutory bodies, such as the EC, if they should find that they are either omitting or are not performing their duties well, to order them to perform their responsibility. It is in the nature of such order that we have brought the action. So it is not as though by bringing this action, the Supreme Court is taking over the statutory or constitutional duty of the Electoral Commission. The Constitution itself says that where you feel it is wrong, bring an action by way of petition to the court, and the court will look at it. And the court can order the Electoral Commission to do what it considers right in the circumstances. I don't know where Mr. Asiedu Nketia'S learned his law, but this is what I learned in law school.
Whoa, I'm being urged everywhere to play back the Gloria Ekufu tape. The first one, I'm being urged to play it back where she was talking about infractions and all of that. People really seem to like it. Some people don't like it. I'm just looking at my phone now and I'm seeing the busy activity on social media. Okay, so we'll take a break. But before we do that, Gloria Ekufu talking about the petitioner's case and what they'll be asking the Supreme Court to do, which we have just played. We'll show it to you again. After that, we'll come back and we'll take the break and we'll show you what we have. Later on tonight, have a look at this. Oh, where is it? No, I don't have it. Okay. I thought I had it. But it's a beautiful photograph of Chachu Chikata and Jean Mensah. Later on tonight, we're going to go through the kinds of questions that we think Mr. Chikata will be putting to Jean Mensah. And if you saw it on social media, we sort of described it as Mr. Chikata bringing over 35 years of experience to cross-examine Jean Mensah. We described her as a founder of the Institute of Economic Affairs, the IEA. She is also a barrister at law, solicitor of the Supreme Court. We're also going to anticipate the kind of answers that she'll be giving. And that's still coming up on Good Evening Ghana. Now, though, let's see Gloria Ekufu again talking to me in 2013 about the case of the petitioner at that time. Let's see it. Joy Online has reported you, Madam Gloria Ekufu, saying that at the end of the process, you expect the court to deduct some number of votes from President Mahama, but also deduct some number of votes from Nana Akufo-Addo. That's amazing. Can you explain that?
Because it's like adding rotten stew to good, fresh stew. Where it is found, for example, that voting took place where there was no verification, and a number is put there.
Of the number of people who voted? Who
voted there. Those have been reckoned. But when you take that, you are not able to tell for whom they voted for. And so since you cannot tell, then the entire result at a specific polling station ought not to have been added. And therefore, you will deduct from the total number of votes that have been credited to
each of the candidates.
Each of the candidates, you subtract from them.
Let's do the mathematics to see whether I get you. So you have a polling station, 200 people voted at the polling station, which is the standard. You're saying that it records maybe 75 people voted without biometric registration.
That's correct.
Now that then immediately takes them into the area of violations.
Yes.
Okay, so all the 200 people that voted, what happens? Because the seat will also record J.D. Mahama would have gotten maybe 75, Nana Akufo-Addo maybe something, Pakwesi Ndum something. So what happens to those numbers allotted to the various candidates?
The effect is when you nullify the results. Remember that at the end of the polls, the whole country constitutes one constituency. So all these results have been put together to determine who won. If therefore these votes that have been contaminated by the non-verification, then the results of the polling station ought to be taken out.
So and you can only the 75 people who voted without biometric registration?
No.
You are cancelling all the 200?
You are cancelling the total valid votes.
So you are taking 200 from J.D. Mahama?
You are taking whatever was allotted to J.D. Mahama, you allotted whatever was allotted to Nana Akufo-Addo.
Oh, the one that was allotted to them?
Yes.
Okay. So if Nana Akufo-Addo got 82, you take it out?
You take it out.
Because this is an
from
invalid...
From his total vote declared.
Okay, I see what you mean. So you have done the mathematics?
Very well.
That's a lot of work, isn't it?
It's worth it.
And in the mathematics, you reckon that about 4 million, is that what
over 4 million votes are contaminated and
all
ought to be
across
the country and ought to be nullified in over 11,000 polling stations. And when that is done, you'll realize that Nana Akufo-Addo is the winner and Joe Mahama is the loser.
So those allotted in those 11,000 places, those allotted to President Mahama, take them out. Those allotted to Nana Akufo-Addo, take them out. Because
you will not be able to tell how...
And of course, those allotted to Pakwesi Ndum goes out as
well? All of them. But since the first two
are the critical
ones, those are the two that we are matching.
And so when you do the mathematics, your client wins the election.
That's correct.
When we come from the break, I'll do the emails. I have quite a few coming in asking me to ask you whether your side is worried by the suit that Justice Pega apparently is complaining about Nana Akufo-Addo's qualification as a lawyer, whether you're worried by that. We have been told today that Mr. Frank Davis has entered appearance for your client. And then I'll do the emails after the break. We'll be right back. Justice Asiedu Nketia'S, His Lordship Justice Yapao, and the Lord Chief Justice.
Now, in all the figures that were mentioned as the valid vote cast and all those things, you were saying if the figures were correct, and that there were inconsistencies in the figures, I want to ask you, now, in your own calculation, what were the total valid votes cast in the presidential elections on 7 December 2020? In your own calculations.
My Lord, those calculations are reserved for a meeting for us to reconcile the figures, because the first respondent herself keeps changing the figures. And so it says, when you bring your...
Excuse me, Mr. Nketia'S, help the court. You see, when you started giving evidence, you said you had all representatives across the 275 constituencies. You said you put agents to use the... Yes, and they were to, collect the figures. You said it. Then he's asking you that from that, what figure did you get? You.
My Lord, I haven't brought that figure to court.
Okay. Then, from your own calculations, what were the valid votes cast in favor of the petitioners, to your knowledge?
My Lord, when we discovered this discrepancy, it was difficult to even know which figures are.
You don't know, you just answer. You don't know.
I don't have them here.
Okay, then the last one. What figures from your own calculations did the second respondent get as the total valid votes cast in his favor?
My Lord, I don't have those figures here.
Thank you. That's all.
Let's see what next did Jean Adukwe Mensah, the chairperson of the first respondent, present Form 13, the declaration of the presidential results form, to all the agents of the presidential candidates to sign? And if so, did all the agents sign? Now, this question is going to turn on that fundamental issue, which is Dr. Pesa White told the court, both in his witness statement and in his examination and cross-examination, told the court that at some point, he, Pesa White, and Rojo Metal Nunu were, as he put it, asked unquote, in quote, as he wrote, today he said instructed, were either asked or instructed by Jean Adukwe Mensah, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, to move out of the strong room to go and confer with President John Dramani Mahama, the petitioner, the presidential candidate of the NDC, over matters that the two agents of the NDC candidate had raised. This question is going to turn around that matter. Dr. Pesa White and Rojo Metal Nunu say that after they left to go and do this all-important conferring with President John Dramani Mahama, then Jean Adukwe Mensah organized the press conference and declared the results. So as far as they are concerned, they were not available in the room when the results were declared. They were not there. They had been asked to leave. We have asked the question on this program, that how is it that two agents, two adults, important people, in a strong room, representing John Dramani Mahama in an all-important matter like this, how is it that both of them will leave for the same cause? We have asked that question on this program for so many times, long before the petition was filed. As soon as the issue came up, Pesa White gave a press conference. We started asking the question, if one of you had to go and see President Mahama, one of you could have gone to see him, the other one should have remained in a strong room so that the candidate has a representation in the strong room, because those were the closing hours of the process. And in fact, Pastor White told the court that his phone had actually gone off because he didn't have his charger, and by the day they had spent so many hours. So in the closing hours of the process, why do two men believe that both of them must leave to President Mahama and get information and come back? Certainly, we think one of them could have stayed.